Check it out, Casper!
Hey everyone, and thanks for tuning in. Casper here, and once upon a time, the Powerjack was hardly ever used. It was second, if not third or fourth or fifth, whatever. And the first place pyro melee was without a doubt the Axtinguisher. And it used to have greatly different stats to what it does now, where its only downside used to be the fact that it didn't do a lot of damage against non-burning players, but it would still 100% crit a burning player on any part of their body. This made for a very powerful combo of basically lighting someone on fire in a corner or a corridor and air blasting them maybe into a position where you can control their movement and getting a guaranteed 195 crit against them. Since those days, it's seen several nerfs and sort of changes. They tried to make it only mini crit against the front, and it was just a bunch of nonsense, and they finally settled on something which is better than it was, but nowhere near as good as it originally was. They do now make it crit on a burning player on any part of their body, i.e. front or back, but because they've reduced the base damage, that's no longer a 195 crit, which would let you take out most classes in one. It's now only a 131 damage crit, which is only letting you take out 3 of the lowest health classes, not including any health buffs they would have, in one hit. And on top of that, it's got a slower switch to time. And on top of that, again, it's got a slower attack speed. And both of these, or at least the first one, completely sort of contradicts the whole point of this weapon. The whole point of this weapon is a combo weapon. You're meant to light a person on fire and then use this to kill them. But the fact that it takes a terrific amount longer to actually get to this weapon than any other melee, then you can't really pull off that combo with any sort of consistency or with any sort of efficiency. The fact that it only does 131, which is a little bit more than 2 hits of a normal melee weapon. If you would take an item like the Powerjack, which is now probably the most used pyro melee weapon, then if you factor in both the time it takes you to switch to the Axtinguisher compared to the Powerjack, and the time it would take you to swing the Axtinguisher once versus the time it would take you to swing the Powerjack twice with its increased, compared at least, attack speed, then you're probably only a few moments longer to swing twice with the Powerjack than it would be to swing once with the Axtinguisher. So you'll see in the background I am using this weapon. I tried it for quite a few games. I really wanted to give it a chance, and immediately it's so noticeable how much longer it takes you to switch to this weapon. It feels almost like your buttons have stopped working on your mouse because you're frantically trying to swing it again and you just can't, because it takes so long before you can actually swing it after switching out. Obviously, I've teamed it up with the degreaser to try and make that switch faster, but it's certainly very noticeable. And obviously, for this weapon to work, you've got to be in a pretty close proximity to the person, which you can't always guarantee after lighting them on fire. Compare this to something like the flare gun, which has got a crit against burning players mechanic, where it does 90 damage, which is about 2/3 of what this does. And of course, you can switch to it quicker than you can switch to this. Then if you're accurate with the flare gun, which a lot of people who main pyro or play a lot of pyro will be by now, it's always a better choice. You don't have to be right next to that person. You're doing almost as much damage, and it's much quicker to pull out. You can even use it in situations where you would use the Axtinguisher, such as getting close to someone, blowing them up into a corner with your air blast, and you can pretty much guarantee a hit with the flare gun as much as you could guarantee hitting them with your melee. So basically what I'm trying to say is, they've nerfed this in such a way that it doesn't actually make sense anymore. They need to allow you to have at least a normal switch time to this weapon. They're basically saying, here, use this to combo. Oh, but don't use this to combo. Maybe you could team up with a teammate who is a pyro, who's lighting people on fire, and then you're hitting them with your axe. It's sort of like the sun on the stick, and how often do you see that used? I suppose at this point in time you're expecting me to offer my solution to this. Well, as I said, they gotta get rid of that switch time, but it just defeats the point of it. The slower attack speed sort of makes sense. It's basically saying, look, if you want to use this to combo, then you got to be good. You got to hit them on the first swing. So that sort of makes sense. Other than that, I'm not really sure. I mean, if I was a perfect genius at balancing weapons, then I'd already be working for a video game company. I wanted to mention this because I used to love this weapon, and now I'm wholeheartedly for the Powerjack. The speed boost of the Powerjack is the main reason that I use it. Mobility is such a key thing in Team Fortress 2, so the fact that you can do that with this weapon is great. The fact that the Powerjack actually heals on hit, or kill rather, has never been something that I've used it for. I've used it only for the mobility. And again, if we compare the Powerjack to the Axtinguisher, It's much better in pretty much every situation, especially when you're fighting against other pyros. If, like me, you don't ever run the shotgun on pyro, then basically the only thing you can do against another pyro is hit them with your melee. So with minus 33% damage, and obviously you can't light them on fire, then you can't really use the Axtinguisher in those situations. So right now it's kind of a no-brainer. Powerjack is almost objectively better than the Axtinguisher. Yes, you can do well with the Axtinguisher, but it doesn't feel sort of good to use because that long switch time and the fact you've got to put yourself in a really vulnerable situation to even use it. Of course, apparently there's rumors of balance patches coming soon, so maybe we'll see some changes to that. But for now, thanks everybody for watching. Here's another video where I did some stuff, and a video where other things happened, and a subscribe button. Thank you. Goodbye.